that we just opened up, that
Yeah.
document, we can project that.
Municipal
onto-
planning grants
Yeah.
Okay.
Pollution
or
control
pollution control grants.
for folks. 'Cause it's always good to get a list of. Welcome back, folks. This is House Corrections and Institutions Committee. It's Wednesday, March 18th. And I always ask the Department of Environmental Conservation to send over their lists of proposed projects for both. And I know we made the agreement for the Clean Water State Revolving Loan Fund. Well, we didn't talk about that yet. But what the Clean Water Fund Board recommended was 1.577 plus. And then for the municipal pollution grants of 3.9 million. So for the Clean Water Revolving Loan Fund, that's a 1 to 5 match with the feds, the same as your drinking water revolving loan fund. For your pollution control, your municipal pollution control grants, that's all state money. That's not used for a match. So what you see up there, and we can make paper copies of this if people are interested, which I always like to have a paper copy because legislators from different towns will ask, they have a project and they want to know where it is in the pipeline, which is really helpful. So for the first one, this is for the Clean Water Revolving Loan Fund. The first section of this is priority listing as of the 12th of February for the loan status for these projects. And total state revolving loan fund project costs, those are the total cost that's involved.
Oh.
That's involved. So what the total cost of the project is, it's not what the state share is. That one, you're getting into 31 million or 34 million. So this is what is projected to be funded through the fiscal year 26 budget, which includes the 4 million. No, we didn't put anything in because they had enough backlog. So if you look at our spreadsheet in the gray section, for FY26, we did not put any money in for the Clean Water Revolving Loan Fund because they had enough that they could match the feds. But this is where they're projecting the projects to go. And if you look on the very bottom of the screen, below funding level line as of February 12th, 26. So with the money that they have available, they can go down as far as that is South Burlington. Anything after that, they're likely to start funding, hopefully, with what we put in for FY27.
They do something.
I have a small and probably insignificant question. What is, I feel like it says PFP. M is obviously municipal, but what does PFP mean for a code?
Where are you?
It's the third.
Four down.
Old Valley Community or
Fourth
stuff.
down. It is,
I mean, it doesn't probably really matter, but I'm just curious. What it-
For profit? I don't know.
Private.
no, it's a private.
Okay.
It's private for profit.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, private,
Mm.
not for
Ooh.
profit.
It
PN,
rains on
PNP
mine.
is
There's a P at the bottom.
Well, anyway, I didn't mean to get too far. I was just curious if somebody knew.
I was
Thank
dead wrong with what I thought.
So so if you look on the line below the dark
Yeah.
black, they're projected as far as the money goes, it's gonna go down to these projects. And they've been approved. The question is sometimes that we used to see is for these projects, they all gone to a bond vote. And they used to show that, show it. Sure.
You know what bypass means? Like bypass likely to go to state fiscal for 27? Because does that impact that line at all?
Like Burlington City.
It would bump it down.
And there's one from Barton too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the 14 and the 2 million?
So what these are ranked by priority.
9.6.
9.6. Brian.
They are ranked. They are ranked
Yep.
by priority points. So the higher your
This-
priority
this
points,
public-
starting with Heinsberg,
Meant to refresh.
top there,
Mhm.
you gotta scroll up. But
Oh, I just need to-
there's a chunk of them at the beginning, which is a continuing project. And then when you get to Heinsberg, it says NA, but then after that, those like 92, 90, 89, 88, those are priority points. So the higher the number, the higher your priority to get the project done. So that's why those are listed.
Yeah.
And the money is gonna go as far as it can down that priority thing. And as far as it goes to South Burlington.
Yeah.
And they have a 64 priority point. So some of this is, they may not, for some reason, they may bypass likely to apply. Now, maybe they didn't have a bond vote yet, or maybe they were waiting for a bond vote. I don't know.
Didn't they talk to us about that last year? I feel like the.
Well, every year they talk to us.
I know,
In
about
which
it.
case, and then they would just move down to the next priorities.
Right.
That's
I
logical.
feel like they did say, but last year, I could be wrong.
So it's always handy to have this list because there will be people that might ask, I have a project in my town. Where is it? And it's always good to have this list.
But, you know, I remember I had some folks in St. Albans City had a question about the class 2 paving grant program, and it's a very similar scoring system. And it also factors in how much money your community's got in the past,
Right.
which is, so you can explain it.
So that's for the Clean Water Revolving Loan Fund, and what the Clean Water Fund Board recommended was $1,577,600. That would be our federal match for money that goes into the revolving fund that goes out and grants and loans to these projects.
Yeah.
We all right with that?
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
So if you keep scrolling down, the next that starts with Franklin Town, this is for your municipal pollution grants. Guess they didn't have enough cash to bring it up to 4 million. So it's 392244. But these are the projected projects.
And this is the municipal.
Municipal pollution grants. This is what's in the pipeline
Mhm.
for that. Available through SY. Okay. So these are the actual amounts.
So Alice, do you know on this list, so multiple, the first one's a good example where it says, so it says, total SRF project cost is empty. And then
Where are you?
top line, like Franklin, for example, and there's plenty of them like this, where the 1, 2, 3, the fourth column and the sixth column are empty. Is that?
That's
Does it mean that-
state fiscal year 26 total state revolving fund project costs. So they're not getting any money from the state revolving fund.
So
You're getting money from the might not get money from the municipal pollution
Okay.
grant, because they can get money from both places. So what we're looking at
Gotcha.
is the column that says PC grant eligibility.
Mhm.
That ties into the 3.9 million.
Mhm.
Ties into the 4 million from FY6 and the 3.9 million plus in FY27.
Yep.
Okay, so you want to look at the PC eligible because the SF is your state revolving fund.
Okay. Thank you.
So these are the projects for the municipal pollution grants. And that 3.9 million gets you just, this is for the FY26. And then if you scroll down, it's this next one. Oh, that's your drinking water. This is your drinking water. So you got a lot of projects in the pipeline. And there was 4 million in FY 26, so they expend the money as far as it goes, and then they pick it up the following year. It's as best as you can do it. So like Shelburne has a couple projects, South Burlington has a couple projects, St. Albans has a couple projects. Franklin, what else for here?
Yeah, that St. Albans project is happening right now.
So it just helps you as well. Berlin has has a project in the hopper.
St. Albans is kind of interesting. They've taken an entire football field in a park. It's not functional right now, but they're putting a huge, this stormwater collection tank underneath it.
So if folks want a paper copy of this,
Yes, please.
Yeah.
let Tate know, because this is good to have.
Please.
Have any folks on a paper copy?
Did you post it?
I have not yet, but I will.
Okay.
Yes, no, it's posted.
I found it there, yeah.
And do these permits have to be requested
Yes.
by the town?
Oh, yeah, they're working with DEC. Oh, yeah, they have to be approved. They have to go through a whole priority list.
But the town needs to initiate the request.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Gotta go to DEC. So make about 6 copies.
Yes.
So that's very helpful. So are we okay with lines 88 and 89? Okay. Let's bump up to Agency of Ag. Water quality, and I know that there's also money in the general fund bill for this. This goes really directly to farmers. It goes towards our calculation for water quality to meet benchmarks.
There's also on the note, Alice, the 2 representatives from the Pittsburgh Academy are in the waiting room.
Okay, they're zooming in?
Yeah.
And they're scheduled for 10:30, right?
Yes.
Let's come back to this, because I know that Scott's doing some work for, there's money in the appropriations bill. I just like to know what's going out the door. So before we let those 2 folks in, we're gonna shift gears to the firing range. Okay? So we 1,000. We zeroed that out yesterday. Zeroing out.
Even the thoughts on them.
And the reason why we were thinking about it is, does it really need to get done? Is the project is to make the firing range a little longer. It is used for training. It would be putting on a new roof so that the water, snow doesn't drip down and then turn into ice on the firing range, which makes it dangerous for those officers who are being trained. And it's design, it's only to go to design documents, it's not to do construction. So the thinking is, we've got a lot of other projects that need to go forward, and let's hold off on design documents for this. Is that accurate, and where we were yesterday? Okay, so let's let the folks. Okay, we have anyone else besides Ken Hopkins and Michael DeRosa? Is there anyone else due to come in, Kate?
It was just,
Just the 2? Oops. welcome and thank you for being able to adjust your schedule real quick to come in. We appreciate it. There's one more, okay. I just want to get the documents from yesterday. We had a question yesterday. We're doing markup of the capital bill. And we had a question on the 200,000 that's being proposed for the firing range at the academy. And our understanding is it's for design documents. And it is to put on a new roof, deal with icing that's happening on the range now, and to extend the length of the range. And we just had some questions about what the 200,000 would get us. And what the plan is. Our understanding, the 200,000 would be for design documents. And when do you anticipate those design documents to be done and then ready to go out to construction? And also to really validate what the need is of this money for the range itself. So I don't know of the three of you, which one would be going first. So I'll leave that up to you folks. Okay, Michael DeRocher, welcome. And Michael, if you could just identify yourself for the record.
Yeah, for the record, I'm Mike DeRocher, the Executive Director for the Division of Fire Safety. And I'll lead off first with just some real high-level information for the committee. But I also chair the Legislative Governance Committee, which looks at capital construction projects down there at the training facility. And if you recall, a number of years ago, Representative Shaw helped in formulating this governance committee down there at the training site so that we could provide a single voice to the legislature on issues that concern the facility in Pittsford. So the governance committee has selected the shooting range as a high priority item to be repaired because of the number of safety concerns and the functionality of this aging structure. So I'm not going to pretend here to be an expert on the shooting range specifically. So we did bring Ken Hawkins and Major Peterson on board here to talk specific to the needs of the law enforcement entity. But the governance committee did vote and approve this capital request to help law enforcement out on getting this facility brought up to meet their needs.
Thank you, Michael.
Yes, ma'am.
Any questions of Mike before we go to Ken? Okay, Ken, welcome.
Good morning, ma'am.
So if you could just identify yourself for the record.
Sure. My name is Ken Hawkins. I'm the Deputy Director of the Vermont Criminal Justice Council and the Vermont Police Academy.
Okay. So we just heard a broad overview. Is there anything in specific that you'd like to add?
I think to keep it brief, there are significant concerns with our ability to train all of Vermont partners with regard to firearms training throughout the state. We don't just serve state entities, we serve all municipalities at the same time to provide the space available for required rule training that happens every year. Every officer in the state is required to complete an annual training that includes firearms training. And we are one of the only entities still available for any of those agencies to come and complete that training. One of the things that we've identified was exactly what Chair DeRocher just talked about, is that environmentally, our range is a three-sided concrete poured structure with a series of baffles at the end that contain all of the rounds that go through from the firing line down through the end of the range. It's currently a 25-yard range. The baffles get cleaned out about every other to every 3 years, depending on the number of users of the range. and the number of rounds that are fired annually, just to ensure that we don't have issues with cleanup at the end. So what we've discovered is that in contracting this out in 2010, one of the issues was to ensure that we never had a round leave the range. So to that end, we hired a contractor, I believe it was Meggitt Systems, that came in and created this space for us. It is a 16-lane range that has overhead baffling systems. They're all armored plate so that a round cannot leave the range, no matter whether you're prone or standing or kneeling and facing down range. The rounds physically can't leave the range at that point. The end baffling system is also gauge steel with rubber trocal that collects and traps those rounds and keeps them from leaving the range. It is a 25-yard, 16-lane range. So, as you can imagine, in a giant cooler box made of concrete, anytime we start getting into December, January, February, March, it gets a little exciting down there. The baffles do not keep out the weather, and the entire firing lane is, or excuse me, firing end is exposed to the elements. So we have all of the precipitation, whether it's rain, snow, sleet, whatever it might be, coming down on the midline between the firing range and the target line, which in that season can get very exciting as we try to get students to go down range and either change targets, or if we're firing from the 5-yard line, whatever that might be, we're asking students to go up and down hills of snow that are created by the baffles. It might be ice, it might be just pools of water. Either way, we are having a difficult time completing that training during that time frame, which reduces our ability to have other agencies and ourselves who run 3 part-time and 2 full-time classes per year, each one of which has a week-long firing range block attached to it. So that's one. So environmentally and from a safety perspective, that's one of our concerns. It's not uncommon to have students slip and fall on that range between the firing line and the target line. Most of our firing occurs forward of the 25-yard line. And to provide the best training we can, that needs to be a thing. So there's a couple issues there for environmental and safety factors. We also worry about the size of the range. Freeman, French, and Freeman did a great job at analyzing and providing us with 3 different options, all of which were varied in cost. But one was to cover the range, which would help that environmental shift to get the bay clean of ice and snow. The second one was to increase the size and the length of the range. And I believe the third option was to include a firing range outside that would be for patrol rifles only. Each one of those are necessary, and each one of those are important. I think it's the $200,000 that you're referring to now would give us those better equipped options to see how much the cost would really be now for each of those options, so we can move forward.
Questions?
Wait until everybody's done, I'm gonna ask.
Just ask.
So Ken, I got a couple questions. One is, you might have said this and I missed it. So on your range, is it all stationary, or do people move through it?
We have, it's a move, so it's an open bay, so we
Yeah.
move students through it. If they're only completing the rule qualification, then it's the typical starting off at the 3-yard line, moving back to the 5, moving back to the 5, moving back to the 7, the 12, and then the 25 for the annual qual. But that's not what we do our basic training at. We are moving throughout all 16 lanes of the range, so we're not always on the X.
Thank you. And the reason I asked that is obviously it's much more of a safety issue if people are moving with a loaded pistol or rifle than if they're stationary in a line. And the second question is, do you have, I realize that the documents aren't done yet, but are you guys ready and able to start building soon? I guess Alice is telling me no.
You need money.
Well, I mean, I know the money, but like from your perspective as the entity doing this, like, and wanting it, are like you're prepared as soon as it's built, or is there some kind of delay on your end too? So I guess if that makes sense.
No, that absolutely makes sense. So you're absolutely right in that we'd have to adjust our training schedule to make sure that it doesn't interfere with whatever that build out might look like. I think right now it would also depend on what the build out's going to be. That 2022 document that outlined the three options, it would 100%, I think, depend on what the options came in at with a revised analysis of cost and what we were going to be able to do based on the cost estimates that they provided at that time. If it's just a covering, that would be one thing. If it was pushing it out from the 25-yard range that is now to the 50 that it should be, that would obviously be a different time frame and a different cost. I think all those variables would add up to our having to readjust our scheduling and agencies throughout the state readjusting their scheduling to whatever that might look like.
Thank you.
So
Thank
let's get into the flow of the money. The 200,000, you've already from 2022, you worked with Freeman, French Freeman. They've come back with 3 different options. So the 200,000 would allow you to do further design work, design documents to narrow down those 3 options. So then, if you did that, then in the next fiscal year for the capital budget, you would come back for a request from us for the money to do the work to extend the range, enclose the range, put a new roof on, whatever you decide from refining these 3 options. So it's up to the capital bill to pay for future construction of the range. Correct? Michael, you're shaking.
Sorry,
your
that would be correct.
Okay, I just want the committee to know we'd be responsible for billing this because this is a state-owned piece of property. It's the Criminal Justice Training Council in Pittsburgh. It's where we train our law enforcement, both state and municipal, as well as our fire departments. And it's a state-owned operation. So Ken, do you know off the top of your head for what Freeman, French Freeman, those 3 options, what price ranges we were looking at for the construction? I know they're old numbers.
I do. And if I can squint real hard, I believe the top covering was 1,077,000.
That was just for the enclosed covering or just the roof?
That was the roof, sound attenuation, seal structure, some lighting, and bird screening. It also included a target transport system that we are not in favor of, so we might have some cost savings there. And again, I don't want to preclude the major from chiming in here, so at any time, sir, please jump in. The second option was a $2,082,000 option, which would add the 25 yards to make this a 50-yard range, which it should be. We shouldn't be training to just 25 yards. That's not a national standard. That would again include the sound attenuation, the concrete slab, LED lighting, the structural roof that we talked about during the first option, bioscreening, a new bullet trap system that would have to be incorporated at the end of that 50-yard range line. And the third line would include the exterior patrol rifle range, which would be a 100-yard outside range that would be attached to the right or left side of the range.
Okay. So, any questions of Ken before we move to Major Peterson? Major Peterson, it's yours. So if you could identify yourself for the record.
Good morning, committee. Thank you for hearing me today. My name is David Peterson. I'm a major with the Vermont State Police in charge of the Support Services Division. I want to say Ken's done a fantastic job of outlining kind of many of the remarks I was going to make. I'll just quickly say that for VSP and our training staff, firearm training is a high liability topic. Getting practitioners to be proficient is paramount, and the existing range structure at the VPA just has its limitations that impact that. I was down there with our new class that's going through the academy currently in January, and I'm out on the range watching some of their proficiency exercises. Water's dripping on them, water's dripping on me. It's a distraction. It makes a challenging learning environment. Ken highlighted well already the distance of the range and how that impacts things, but it really precludes being able to develop proficiency with patrol rifles in particular, which is now a standard issue for the Vermont State Police. So we recognize that, you know, any move to enhance that facility would be beneficial, not certainly for our organization, but also for law enforcement throughout the state.
Well, I don't want to be facetious here, but at least it's giving real life training.
At the same time.
At the same time.
Right.
So Kevin, hang on. I do have a question of Ken. For the numbers that you put out, the Freeman gave us options. Are those total project cost or is that just construction costs?
I would defer to the chair on that. I believe those are total cost for, it looks to me as though that's just scope and to provide for permitting, pre-construction time. I believe that's in total.
It would be the total project cost, not just the construction.
That's my understanding, ma'am.
Yeah, and it would be BGS that would be going out for the work. We have the commissioner of BGS here and she's nodding, so it'd be a BGS project.
Because of the site and the location, and we would have oversight of this and the
Because
contract.
we own it,
Yes,
because we
and I
own it.
believe we hold the contract with French Freeman now. I don't have it in front of me, but I'm pretty confident.
Kevin?
How do we currently do the long range training, the 100-yard? We have a facility, I assume, or we have a location, or we don't have anything at all?
Like 5.
So I think agencies have taken it upon themselves to partner with a lot of the rifle clubs and the hunting clubs throughout the state to try to find that 100-yard range where possible. I know that the Ethan Allen firing range, as part of Vermont Guard, attempts to make their ranges available where they can, but even their operational tempo now is so high that it's very difficult for a lot of agencies to be able to get time on those ranges. So what we've done is produced a qualification standard on reduced targets so that we can still maintain the patrol rifle qualification on our range at 25 yards by using those smaller or reduced targets. It is 100% not ideal.
And what's the utilization when you have this long range? How many days or weeks out of the year would it be utilized?
So I think if we're talking just the patrol rifle range, sir, my guess would be it'll be in use at least 1 day a week, if not more. Right now, the range itself, the enclosed portion that we're talking about, the upgrade for, is in use at least 2 to 3 days per week.
Yeah, the long range at least once a week. I hear you. Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
So if you were not to get the 200,000 this year, what then happens? You're just on hold until next year for the new cycle of the capital budget? Can you do anything going forward, or do you need the 200,000 to refine those 3 options that you've had? Can you refine those 3 options without 200,000?
I would answer that by saying, no, we cannot. We would need the $200,000 to advance this initiative. I don't see any other funding source at this point.
What would 100,000 get you? Just putting stuff out.
No, right. No,
What would
no.
100,000 get you? Would it still get you to construction documents, or is it 200,000 you need to get to construction documents?
I think I would defer to BGS on that particular question. I can't answer that.
Yeah. Commissioner.
So, good morning, everyone.
And put you on the hot spot.
For the record, Wanda Manoli, Commissioner of Buildings and General Services. I almost said I call myself. I'd like to actually, Emily and I just had a great meeting with Joan. We were going over some projects. This one came up. So I do wanna, we'll have an answer before we will answer. Absolutely, Madam Chair. So we'll go back and look at the 200,000, and the question is, can you continue if you got less money, how far could you advance this in order to bring it into the capital bill next year? And so we will have an answer for you. We are here to serve. Thank you.
Where you are.
Wanted to bring folks today.
Other questions of these three folks on the screen? Did this help the committee?
Didn't he?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you, sirs.
Thank you so much.
So we'll circle back with BGS on this. We haven't made any decisions. We're just in the first walkthrough of markup. So we had some questions yesterday. And I really appreciate the three of you taking time out of your day to come in and bring us more up to speed on the information. We really appreciate it.
Chair, if I could say one
Yes.
thing, I really do appreciate the support that your committee has given to the governance committee down there at the training facility, the support of the renovation of the East College and all that you do to support us. So thank you for the time this morning to be able to discuss this with you.
Well, there was a lot of work that went into establishing that governance committee. So I really appreciate the work that you folks are doing. So thank you. Anything else? Okay, thank you, the three of you. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we'll wait to get some more information back from BGS on this. And let's see what, I got to get papers. Trying to find my agenda.
Good when I come up with the same from the chair here. The training is more realistic.
No, I haven't focused on it.
Heads.
All that.
You got
Corrections land.
I am, and I can't even find my,
That's not necessarily.
No.
Snowing in Vermont. Get up this.
so Tate, who do we have at 10?
The 30 is the ag fair.
It's the ag fair at,
Sorry, 11.
11.
Yeah.
the ag fair is at 11.
So that's minutes away.
And BGS is at 11:30. My agenda.
Oh, listen, maybe I took yours. Here,
Did you pull one?
Well, you can
well,
have
he prints one out for me too, but I might have taken yours.
mine.
I just wanted to.
Just being proactive.
Yes. Way to go. You can have this up here. I'll be useful.
How much do you folks have for time here? Because you're scheduled at 11:30, but we want to talk about fiscal security enhancements. We're looking at that. Did you want to weigh in on 120 State Street or not?
So we, hello, everyone. So I actually, we had an opportunity to review and discuss with Joe and pull some of the questions you were asking yesterday. And there's a few items that we can share with you, Madam Chair, or with the committee that would like to bring some clarity to.
You can share it with the committee.
Madam Chair, I just say, I don't know what your schedule is because I can hand you this.
We're markup. So do you want to get on the witness board?
Would you like us to make copies?
Yes.
And
Why don't you
we've
do?
got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 items.
Okay, why don't you make copies and prepare? We're also, are they coming online for Franklin County Field Days?
They're a mix of online.
Okay,
Franklin County Field Day wasn't listed.
we're dealing with,
updates.
yeah, updates.
And then Emily was going to present to you the security at 11:30, just so you know.
Can you do it? When we finish with the ag fair, we're talking about Franklin County. Talking about Franklin, they know they're just talking about Franklin County, right?
You're doing that at 11.
At 11.
Can we roll in from there?
Yeah.
Yes. You've got everything you need from the team on security.
Oh, yeah.
Of course we can.
So when you say roll in, before they come in or after?
We can just start security early if you,
Yeah, if you got 5 minutes, just security now.
do you want to do, okay.
Security? Yeah,
Sure.
I can be as quick as you want me to be.
So for physical security, that's line 3 for folks. And we have 250 in bonded in 27, and the governor's proposed 225 cash be added to that. So welcome. If you could just identify yourself, Emily.
Hi, Emily Kosicki, Deputy Commissioner of Buildings and General Services for the record. It's nice to see you all. It's been a while.
We haven't worked on this in a long time.
I know.
So
So
we're starting over.
the reason for the proposal for increased funding to physical security enhancements is really because we have a demonstrated increased need for security enhancements as well as the cost of those enhancements. And when I'm talking about physical security enhancements, I think the most common example would be, our state badge readers and access keys, which are very important for, again, maintaining control of access to the building, as well as identification of who's in it, as well as our security cameras. Those play a really important role for our ability to monitor our state buildings across the state, where we can't always have a physical presence, but the cameras allow us to see what's going on and record where necessary. So those are like the most common examples, but other examples could include, for example, fortified glass, like if we're having a client services window for an AHS meeting area, like that's another example. Barriers, like those are the types of things that we're talking about. And what we're seeing is that we are overspending that typical annual appropriation of $250,000. What that results in is the cost being shifted to fee for space, when really in our recommendation, it is a capital bill item. It is a physical infrastructure improvement, and we should be budgeting for it instead of shifting it to the fee for space operating cost. Just in the past few years, security has been really moving forward in an admirable way with projects that, again, have gotten costlier over time. And so they did have some old money, like around from the COVID years, that they have worked through. And as a result, I would say we have, in the past 2 years, overspent our capital bill appropriation. Balance that we spent in excess of that amount has come either from shifting funds from other areas or, again, putting those costs towards fee for space. Again, this we've spent over our appropriation for FY26. We also, just if you wanted a flavor of some of the projects that we've done recently that have a high cost, we did enhancements at the Middlebury State Office building that just didn't have appropriate security up to our standards. We did camera work at our welcome centers, which are sometimes in remote areas. We have state employees who are sometimes, on their own, again, having the traveling public come in. They didn't have camera or appropriate secure areas to go into. And so we spent about $75,000 doing upgrades in those areas. And then we have a list of anticipated projects that we could tackle now with appropriate funding that are over $450,000. So again, really, we're seeing the demand. And just as a reminder, these enhancements are built into our project costs when we're doing a new construction or a new renovation. This need is really for if we're having to upgrade, replace existing systems. If we have an older building or a lease that just isn't adequate, not even close to our standards, we're finding more frequently where we come in and make an assessment. And if we agree with the occupant that it's really not up to par, it's not secure enough, we really try our best to find the funding to make it happen for them. So we're just, again, seeing that more and more. And so are requesting additional funds so we can carry out some of these upgrades.
Questions? I give it sneeze.
Bless you.
So if you didn't get the full you gotta get on the right thing, the full 225 on top of the 250. So if you didn't get the full, am I looking at the right? Yeah, the full 725. you would just dole out your projects within that time, within that money that's available.
Yeah, we would just, again, we follow a normal practice of sort of prioritizing projects based on where we see the highest security needs. So we would follow that approach. We would spend what we have available to us, and in some cases where work is truly necessary, shift those costs to fee for space.
So how much, you said 400,000, is that about what average you're spending over a 2-year period or a 1-year period?
1-year period. Yep.
And Madam Chair, and Emily's been working really closely, and Bill, and this is one of our programs, resetting and trying to address the security concerns outside of what's in a normal project. And I don't know if you highlighted the shift of those costs to other programs that aren't funded, which is fee for space.
Yeah, exactly. So again, if there's something we really feel needs to go forward, but we don't have our capital funding available for it, it can get shifted to fee for space, which again, ultimately can burden operating funds.
And I think it's important that our fee for space program gets funded out of appropriation, and we have to pay the real cost. So we have to go in at the end of the year and do an excess receipt, and it's been fairly high for quite a few years. And we're talking about in the millions, which has an impact on appropriation. So we're really trying to align the true cost with the programs and which funds they should come out of. There are security enhancements that may belong in fee for space. There are security enhancements that belong in a capital project. And then there are expectations on security that we maintain statewide in all of our buildings. And that's where the capital.
So how much you had in FY 26? You had 250,000 in cash, and that's all you had. And I'm just looking at the sheet that came in when we took testimony here. And it showed that with bonded and cash for both FY 27 and FY 26, there would be 725 total. And this was as of the 22nd of January. At that point, only 64,000 has been expended in FY 26. And then there was 103,000 that would be committed. So there's about 550,000 left. Are these figures still accurate?
As of this morning, and again, they were working on cleaning up old money, but in the 25 cash fund, there was 167,000 left. And I'll just say, I am working with our finance director and our security director, Bill McSallis, after getting this information to look at some costs that have recently gone into fee for space that perhaps should be shifted over to this money to, again, cover that old money that was sitting there and really is a capital fund, because as of this morning, there was about, there was money again that had gone recently to fee for space that again, we think should go towards this money. So all that to say, I think that money will be zeroed out.
160,000, you mean?
Hmm?
So you're gonna use that to backfill what came out of fee for space?
Yeah, recent charges to fee for space.
And that's for FY 25.
Yes. And then for FY 26, so far $330,000, which again is more than our appropriation. So that's money that's been shifted over from other projects.
So for FY 26, you already are saying that there's over 400,000 for projects?
Anticipated projects additional to what we've already done. So I just got some examples from Bill, like what are some examples of some recent work that we've done that totaled 210, and then anticipated projects that are on our priority list, which come up to $455,000.
You've expended everything of the two, for FY 20. For FY 26, you had 250,000 in cash. And you've already expended most of that.
Yes.
And then on top of that, there's an anticipated 400,000.
There's of need of identified projects that we see coming.
So that would roll over into FY 27.
Correct, and that doesn't even include our normal updates or repair for like the badge readers and cameras. These are like areas where we've identified sites that we don't think have adequate security based on our standards. So that 450,000 is examples of sort of special or priority projects.
Questions? Does this help, folks?
Yes.
Yes. So if you don't get the money, all the money that's been asked, then you just don't get as many projects out the door.
That's right.
But I'm seeing a reduction. We had 250,000 in cash for 26, and now we're saying only 225. So in a way, we're going in the wrong direction if it's getting more expensive and security needs are going up.
But we're adding. FY 27, there's 250 in bonded. And we're adding 225. For a total of 475 for FY 27.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Emily.
Anything else?
Would you like this? Oh. one second.
Yeah, we got the ag fairs. We want to talk to the ag fairs. And specifically for Franklin County. So we're in the building community grants, but it's, that's true for the I think it's 350. We do have folks on. So the 300,000 for all the grants. And I really want to have a conversation about the Franklin County Field Days because there's been money that has been appropriated in previous years. Some of that money was put on hold a little bit. Last year, and I'm not sure if the year before, the committee that works on the ag fairs that determines the amount of money to go to each of the fairs. I think last year there was nothing that went to Franklin County, and is that true for the year before? I'm just not sure. We've been dealing with this a lot for the last 4 or 5 years. I just wanted to bring the committee up to speed. And the other piece that plays into this for the ag fair specifically, there's a 3-year window that once the grants have been approved, and the entity has 3 years to encumber those dollars. And if they haven't encumbered those dollars, the money goes back to the grant program. So, and I know we made an exception for Franklin County Field Days a few years ago because they were hitting that trigger. And we made a little exemption. So I just want to know the history of how much money's gone and when it was held back. And so we can make a decision on how to go forward here.
Sure.
So whoever wants to speak, we got 3 folks from the Agency of Ag, and there is a process that these ag fair grants go through. It might be good to start what that process is and then focus in on the Franklin County Field Days.
Sure, I'm happy to speak. For the record, Trevor Lowell, I'm the Assistant Director of the Development Division with the Agency of Ag. So our team manages the capital grant program and the stipend program for the fairs and field days. Yeah, so the process is we have a committee. It's made up of, it's in statute who those members of that committee are. So we have some representatives, Jackie Folsom from the Fairs Association. We have some other folks who've been involved in the fairs over the past. It's a competitive grant program. So the fairs apply every year in the fall. They apply both with a capital project and they provide information that informs how we distribute the stipend funds. Our agreements go out where we actually lump the capital award in with the stipend fund, but they're actually two separate kind of channels of money. The stipend is related and kind of driven by attendance, the cost of their plant improvements and some other calculations. So that's not a competitive fund necessarily. It's more of a kind of a calculus that we do to figure out how much they're awarded every year.
But that doesn't come out of our ag fair grant through the capital bill.
Correct. Yeah.
Let's be very clear for folks. That's a separate funding.
Where does that come from?
I believe so, yeah. The capital projects, they submit an application. They tell us what they want to do with that money. We have requirements that are related, you know, some of which are very much tied to the funding source. So there's a 20-year useful life requirement for these projects. And we have a 15% match requirement as well. Fair is kind of, there's quite a big range there in how much money they're contributing. Sometimes it's that minimum 15%. Oftentimes we see up to, I think 80% was the highest match we saw this year. And the projects really run the gamut. They're often just improvements to the infrastructure. We've seen everything from ADA accessible bathrooms to an improved pole barn to a pulling track to bleachers for the arena, lots of different projects that have come through. They typically have 1 year to complete that project. And we have extended these grants over the past as things have happened, flooding, different setbacks, supply chain issues. So we work really closely with the fairs with this goal of trying to help them succeed and make sure these projects go through really well. So this year we awarded 10 capital grants, or 9 actually, excuse me, 9 capital grants. And then 2 additional organizations received just the stipend. This year we did award Franklin a grant. They plan on holding their fair at a new site this year. So we've worked with them to confirm that. That's one of the eligibility requirements is you have to actually hold a fair and has to be held for a minimum of 3 days. And yeah, before I maybe pivot more to the Franklin, are there any questions about the granting program or the process there? That review committee, we meet with them in January to review all the applications, and then it's a committee decision around whether to award those grants or not. Sometimes there's some follow-up to get more information about a project. If the committee has any questions, we'll do that follow-up before we make final decisions. But we've since made those decisions and have executed most of these agreements for FY26 already.
Are there any questions? Okay, let's go to Franklin County.
So the history with Franklin County, and I'm just going to speak very much from the ag perspective here. I think there are lots of other players, Franklin Fair Days themselves. I think B-Trans has been involved in this conversation over the years as well. So just to kind of emphasize, like I'm very much speaking from the ag agency standpoint and our role in managing these programs and holding these funds. FY22 was the first year that we held some funds with them. So there was a $26,000 capital grant made in FY22. That grant, there was never any money expended under that grant. So they never claimed any from that. This was kind of the beginning of this process of Fair having to move off of the airport facility. And so that project never went through. It did get executed in a grant agreement. So both parties signed that agreement and that agreement has since expired. So that $26,000 is an expired agreement at this point from FY22.
And where is that money right now? That 26,000?
I believe that's still being held in our coffers, pending a resolution to kind of what we want to, how we want to work with this money. There's 2 other buckets of money, subsequent years, FY23 and 24, where we actually didn't sign an agreement with them. We worked with the fairs and this committee a little bit, and the decision was made to hold those 2 fiscal years worth of capital funds for the fair to be able to apply that money to land purchase if they were able to find a suitable piece of land.
So let's go through this again, because I want this to be very, very clear. So the first 26,000 was from FY
22.
22. And that was 26K. So that right now is being held within the Agency of Ag.
Yes.
So, and then in FY 23, how much money?
23, there was 30,000,
Then FY 24,
27,280.
27 through 80.
Yes.
and so they're holding that 60,000, almost 60,000. That's being held by the fair itself.
No. The FY 23 and 24, the distinction between the FY 22 money and the 23 and 24 money is that first, the FY 22 was actually executed, was, an executed agreement between the agency and Franklin Fairs. That money, they never drew any money down from that agreement. No money was paid out. That grant agreement has since expired, but the money still sits out there. The 23 and yes, I believe so. Yes. The 23 and 24 money was never actually put into an agreement. So the decision was made to just hold that money in anticipation of some resolution in Franklin Fair, I think finding a suitable place to relocate the fair to.
So that money right now is basically on hold. I mean, it's being held. So is it being held within the agency?
I believe so, yes.
Because there's no agreement with the fair. So that FY 23, by statute, if money is awarded to a fair, they have 3 years to encumber the money and spend it. And then if they don't, then we can reallocate that money. Correct. Shall reallocate that money. So the FY 23 of 30,000 will be coming up more next year because we haven't finished this fiscal year. But there wasn't an agreement. The agency's been holding on to it anyway. Joe.
Just as a little bit of background, and James, you can expound, but so the Field Days was held for several decades at a site that is part of the Highgate Airport property, which the state is in the process of doing a lot of work with. And so subsequently, Field Days had to relocate. And one thing they had been looking at was purchasing a piece of land contiguous almost to the existing site. And the advantage there would have been that they could have moved their buildings. So a lot of their buildings simply can't move to the new site. They're going to end up getting demoed, which is, I think, the primary reason why this has been delayed so long with Franklin County Field Days.
Well, I have a question. So, and maybe Alice, you're the right one, and maybe Trevor, you're the right one. So we just mentioned 23, which is coming up on the verge of needing, reallocation. But 22, what's the deal with that? It's over 3 years, but does it rule different because it was a agreement, even though it's expired, or is that money gone? Like, is it? I mean, it's still there allegedly, but like, what process do we have to do to make sure that basically it's the entirety of this 90 grand, roughly 90 grand, or 85,000 is still in existence? And
So the agency is holding it.
We
They haven't freed it up to be used for other ag fairs.
correct. Yeah. And that FY 22, I mean, we've had some conversations with Agency of Admin and some other state partners around this question that you're raising. I think where we've landed is that FY 22 money at this point would need to be reallocated.
So
Because it was put into an agreement, that agreement expired and we've passed that 3-year threshold at this point.
So I'm assuming it would be reallocated to our capital bill? I've got to look at the
Yes,
language.
I have it right in front of me. if you want me to
Yeah,
read
you
it.
know, I think it comes back to the capital bill. It doesn't stay within the ag fairs for them to reallocate it.
So notwithstanding 32 VSA, which I believe is the capital bill 701A.
Right.
If after an entity awards grant funds under this chapter, the entity now being the agency, the funds remain unexpended and not subject to a grant agreement. And I don't know what an expired grant agreement means here, but the entity may reallocate the unexpended funds within its grant program. So you could have given it to another within 3 years of the original award date. Any unexpended funds remaining after this 3-year period that are not subject to a grant agreement shall be allocated in future acts relating to the capital construction and state bond. So bottom line,
So the 26,000 gets reallocated within our capital budget.
unless we notwithstand,
We haven't made a decision on that.
and this is Title 24, 24 VSA 5601. James, I just sent it to you.
So did the repro committee look at this at all?
Why was this not, I don't know why.
Good morning, for the record, Scott Moore, Joint Fiscal Office. This was not on the report the agency administration gave us, but probably because it had been within the line item for the grants. But once it's in the line item for the grants, it's gone to the agency, and therefore we don't
Yeah,
keep track of that micro detail.
So the question is for us, for the FY 22, do we reallocate that 26,000 to our bottom line? Sorry.
trying to get a sense on where the land purchase is at this point,
But the what?
where the land purchase options
That's gonna
are.
be millions.
Yeah, but do we have?
Yeah, well, I can share what I know. We've talked to Franklin Fair a couple times. They do have an active lease on a piece of property in Swan right off the interstate. It's I believe the property is currently on the market, but they have an agreement with the owner, the property owner, to operate the fair on that property under a kind of a long-term lease agreement.
But that doesn't meet your 20-year.
Right, they don't own that land.
Yeah, I
And so
understand.
that would preclude us from really, so the capital grant that we awarded to them this year was for the purchase of 3 mobile trailers. So they're gonna run the fair in this field, basically.
So that
And
came out of the FY 25,
no, the grant that was this year came out of FY 26.
came out of FY 26. And how much was that for?
Their grant this year was 28,430.
And that all went to the trailers.
Yes, and the idea there was that allows them to have one trailer for an office and staff bathrooms, and then 2 storage trailers. So we talked to the manufacturer and confirmed that those trailers have a 20-year useful life. If the fair is able to find a permanent piece of property to move the fair to, they could then move those trailers quite easily and continue to make use of that. But right now, they don't have a new piece of property that they own. So that really limits kind of how we can support them through this capital program.
James, you had something?
Well, I mean, I have a question about the overall money, because we know, at least from the outside, we know that this is allegedly a 2-year lease agreement. But so this money, the 85 roughly thousand, is there some way we as a committee, or however it's gotta be done, can reallocate that for to go toward purchase of now they may not purchase it, but that it reallocates, it gets it back in the system, that it's not like already 3 and 4 years old, which is what it is now. And with the express purpose of going toward the purchase of a property,
The 26,000.
all 3 all 3 years,
That would be,
or at least those
That-
first 2 years, which
that would be a real shift in terms of what the ag fair grants can be used for, correct?
Well, the reason I mentioned that is because Trevor mentioned these last two having.
But that's on
Yeah,
hold. But
yeah.
what you're saying is take those 3 years and target that for them to purchase property going forward. And is that allowed within your ag fairs grants program to purchase property?
This is starting to get outside of my lane of expertise. I know in the past, we've had some conversations around using bonded money to purchase land and capital bill money to purchase land. I can't speak to the resolution of that conversation. I think that's just an aspect of this ongoing issue, though, is whether that's something that this committee of the state supports.
My specific, I guess, it doesn't, I only mentioned land purchase because you had mentioned it. I just want to make sure that those don't fall off and that we can get them back in the system for even for the original purpose. That's perfectly fine. As long as we can let the fair know that we are trying to make sure that the money doesn't go away like we promised. Well, not you guys, but we promised them that we would try to do.
Well, that 26,000 has already hit that time frame for reallocations. So you'd be making an exception. Once you start doing that for one, you're gonna end up doing it for everybody else. And also, this is part of the Building Community Grants Program.
Mhm.
So there are deadlines for all the other grants as well that have to be encumbered. So if you do it for one, you're gonna open up the door to do it for everybody.
That's fair enough. Oh,
So I think we have to be, gotta be cognizant of that.
It's an unusual scenario though, because the fact that they just weren't using the grants all along is because the state basically mandated that they move from their site.
That's the airport.
It's the airport,
Something,
which was not their, I mean, they were just on a lease. They didn't own the site. But nonetheless, it's they didn't create their own hardship. It's kind of tough to relocate an agricultural fair, so it's an unusual scenario.
it's a policy decision we're gonna have to make. I mean, what's facing us right now is FY 22 monies of 26,000 has hit that trigger. It's more than 3 years old, and it shall be reallocated to the capital. And then FY 23 and 24 money is on hold. There was never an agreement executed. And for FY 25, there was no money at all because they were closed, not operating. So then you've got almost 60,000 that's on hold right now. Was there the intent of the committee for how long that money would be on hold, that almost 60,000, or what the thinking was for putting it on hold?
I think that's still unresolved as well. I think the hope and the intent of the Franklin Field Days is to be able to purchase a piece of land. The timeline for that, I think, is very much up in the air. It's my understanding that they like this spot, the leased land, that they would potentially move forward with that, but I'm not sure. I can't speak to their financial position and whether they, feel like they could afford to buy that in the next year, 5 years, if there's other properties that they're looking at. I think that's part of what's at play here too, is just kind of an ambiguous timeline around what they're able to accomplish.
Trevor, do you, whether information we need or not, but I was just curious, do you know how much they're asking for the property that they're now leasing?
I think it's upwards of $2 million, but I would.
60,000 isn't gonna get you much.
Okay, that's helpful to know.
I know it's.
And I just would offer that. I would have to go back and look, but I believe it's in that range, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're talking millions, and that's been part of the issue right along. And I know Franklin County Field Days folks have been in here looking for money.
Mm.
We're helping them purchase property. But when you're talking in the millions, that's where the rub comes in, Joan.
And I don't think that make up a number of $2 million ask is reasonable, but potentially when they do locate this site or another, I mean, there's You can amortize the thing. You don't need to have all the money up front. In which case, you know, whatever resources could be made available to that end are useful.
But those grant dollars do not go to making payments on a
No.
property. Goes to infrastructure improvements. Doesn't go,
They
it doesn't
can't.
go to paying your mortgage.
Cannot.
It goes for infrastructure upgrades, not to pay your mortgage.
Well, nonetheless, I mean, there are gonna be improvements needed, so you could frame it in such a way that it would be compliant with the parameters of the grant program.
Yeah, I mean, I think our standpoint is we're very supportive of trying to, help Franklin through this transition. And, I think they're in a very tough spot. It's a historic event, has a lot of importance to the community. And it's unfortunate, but I think, where we're at is we have one small role to play and manages these funds and these agreements. If there's a role for us to support Franklin, I mean, we continue to talk with them and try to understand their needs. But I think there's a handful of other players too in this challenging situation.
Because we've also asked them to reach out to like the local economic development entities or regional planning commission folks, because it is an economic engine for that part of the state, that ag fair, and to bring other partners to the table to maybe put together a package of grant money or monies to help them purchase property to move forward.
Yeah.
That seems to maybe have worked or maybe not have worked. But just to have a board of volunteer folks for the ag fair itself doing this kind of work is a pretty heavy lift.
Mm-hmm.
And they really need the partners. And that's the conversation we had with them in 22, 23, and 24
Mhm.
with them and the delegation from Franklin County. We got to bring in partners to help you here.
And at home, we've met with them with that Franklin County Industrial Development and other entities. And so, yeah.
So what's before us, at least for FY 22, there's 26,000 that really is up for reallocation. The FY 23 and FY 24, there's no agreement that's been executed between the agency and the Franklin County Field Days, but the agency's put that money, you have it, and you're just holding on to it. That's almost 60,000. FY 25, there was no money from the Ag Fair Committee to go to Franklin County because they weren't operating. So that money was distributed evenly across all the other fairs. Because this is, if you hold money back from Franklin County, like 23 and 24, you're holding that money back from other fairs. Because you have 300,000 a year and it gets divided up equally. So in FY 26, the current fiscal year, there was 28,000 plus. It was awarded to the Franklin County Fairs for the purchase of 3 trailers. So that allows them to have the fair for this year, next year, following. The question is, 26,000 is up for reallocation. And then the FY 23 and 24, we haven't hit that trigger of the 3-year yet for the FY 23. That will be next session for that. Are folks clear
Mhm.
on moving? Sean?
I mean, my question is like, is $26,000 going to make much of a difference, going back into the cash fund?
Went back into the cash. It goes to the bottom line of the capital bill.
Or the bottom line of the capital? Well, or do we just leave it there, right?
Well, we shall reallocate, it says by law.
So can we
After
just
3
reallocate it back to them though?
You'd
Is that
have to
part of it?
reallocate it back to the ag fair grant, which means you should also increase all the others.
Okay.
Because if you look at the building community grants, we've always been clear that the grants receive the same amount.
Okay.
And they're all at 300,000. So if you raise one, you really need to raise all the others to be fair.
Gotcha. Okay.
Though it's not really raising them, it's just keeping the money that their share that they already got that ran out because everybody else got their
They
share and
didn't
spent
come-
it.
But they didn't
I get it.
carry through on their agreement.
I hear you.
And that would be the case for other grant money that would go out through the building community
Yeah.
grants. If it wasn't spent in a period of time, then comes back.
So then take it and put it into the capital book.
So those are the decisions that we'll have to make. So are people clear on that? Anything else, Trevor or Amy or Nicole? Online there?
I don't think so. For the record, Nicole Dubuque, Agency of Agriculture. Trevor seemed to cover it all, but happy to answer any questions that you have. And yeah, we're available for any follow-up. Thank you.
And I know in the past, when we did come up to the timeline, we tried to work with them, but then the money still wasn't expended.
Yeah, I think it's been an ongoing process of trying to navigate new land.
Yeah. Anything else? Thank you, folks, for coming in on such short notice.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So helpful.
Yeah, if we can provide any follow-up, just let us know. Appreciate the time.
Thanks, Trevor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you too online. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Come on up. Yes, come on up.
Madam Chair, while the deputy gets prepared to go over our list, I'm gonna let her lead and I'll be on the sideline. If I could speak to the committee from here about the firing range. If you're ready.
Yeah. I put this. Yep.
Okay, so I know you heard testimony and we've been working closely with, you know, on this particular project. And the need for the firing range. I appreciate that it is one of the areas that you have live practice. I got that, Madam Chair.
Yeah, right.
I spoke with Joe Aja, our Director of Design and Construction. The original report that the members were presenting to you is from 2022.
Right.
And so that's an important date for me. It was a report that gave options. I think you understood that. There were three options in that report. The working group chose the option that has the roof, the covered roof. At that time in 2022, it's a $3 million estimate. And the numbers that they were talking about.
That's with the roof and the extended firing
That's-
range.
So what Joe said, the option they chose is a $3 million project cost estimate. And so Joe, so then I discussed what the money, the request is specifically so the request for $200,000 is to take that choice, that option, and to take it to the next design level to be able to get a true cost and come back next year in the capital bill with a potential request. So reducing it will not get us to that goal.
So it takes you to construction documents.
We'll call them construction documents with a defined budget and it will be that exploration. I spent some time with Joe on the phone and I said, you know, can we look at making it smaller? Having a smaller amount extends the time of when we will be ready to present you a better number and a true plan on that project.
So the governance committee already weighed in on those and decided to go with the option of the roof. And I think the extension of the firing range.
And my note just says roof option. I'm going to agree with you because I did hear some of the testimony.
Yeah, and also
You said there were three options and the governance chose one. It's the roof option. That's
the governance committee chose that. So that's not what came through in testimony, because what came through in testimony, they had the three options and they need to look at it closer to figure out which option to go forward. So there's a little miscommunication there going on.
But if they voted on an option and we were to advance the project, I'm very comfortable with the request of 200,000 is reasonable to bring back to you the chosen option with a construction design with estimates, if you so choose to support.
So in FY in 22, that particular option with the roof and extended fire range was $3 million cost at that point.
Correct, that was, that, and I don't know if there were inflations in there, if there are contingencies, I just tried to get as much information for you, Madam Chair, as I could when I stepped out. You know, but you, right, does that cost carry forward in today's dollars? I can't confirm that right now.
It's sort of for the room. I'm not sure if it's for the commissioner, but so there was talk of the roof, there was talk of the extension, there was talk of the 100-yard firing range for rifles. So this sounds like the last is not being pursued. I'm thinking of almost like an a la carte menu, like, yes, we're going to cover it. That's 1 million. Yes, we're going to extend. That's 2 million. And I can't remember the cost for the rifle range. We're not doing that. No.
And I wouldn't say it's probably an a la carte, it was probably a clear, you could just do the short one and it's here. So, I don't think you can take option A and then add to B and then go to C. And knowing the site and the location, I
don't,
can't, and I've been there several times, I can't envision being able to do that either. I think
You
you're
do it all at
very,
once.
and it's a very linear, shooting range.
And you gotta
now.
have the roof over the whole extension.
Yeah. And so the rifle, though, either way, is not a part of what we're talking about. Right?
The rifle either way?
Yeah. So they were talking about a 100-yard rifle range outside of this facility.
No, this was the current range just to extend the length of it, not to do an additional one on the outside. Was not my understanding.
Okay.
My notes was you do a roof and the longer and you extend the range. That was my notes from January. And also maybe the baffles,
Yes.
those three things. It wasn't enclosing the whole range. It wasn't doing an outside one.
Yeah.
It was-
Okay.
So where are we, folks? On this one, we have to reconsider or not?
I'm keeping it. I have been since yesterday.
Yeah. Like
You
what?
have what?
I've been since yesterday, keeping it. I was not in favor of zeroing.
I'm the same. Yeah, I think you gotta keep.
Yeah.
Some folks wanted to zero this out yesterday.
On further.
Yeah, I'm fine with keeping it.
Okay. We made one decision. Emily, welcome.
Okay,
No,
so,
it's not bad for 3 hours. I'm sorry.
we, as the commissioner said, we, followed up with a poll and Director Aja and listened back on some of the conversation yesterday. So there were just a few points where we heard some question or discussion that we wanted to follow up on in your markup from yesterday. So I'll try to move through quickly. Regarding 120 State Street. No, I can. I was just gonna walk through it really.
Okay.
Regarding 120 State Street, we this morning had reviewed the prior appropriations. Of that, most of the previous funding has been reallocated or recommended for reallocation, and there's no additional prior appropriations to be reallocated. BGS is recommending that we retain the 2 million in FY27 funds. And the reason for that is because we still have question marks around what is going to happen with the Capitol Complex rebuild once we have our information from FEMA and what that design is going to look like. And so some of the work that's anticipated for the 120 renovation and HVAC may depend on what happens with that, specifically around some of our goals for MEP replacement from flood damaged equipment. So that we really just would like to retain, again, knowing that we may have to do some redesign work, may have to change our approach based on what's happening with that flood rebuild. And the timing of our spend for that will depend on the timing of our work with FEMA and when we receive and accept an offer.
And so,
That's my question. When are we anticipating that offer from FEMA?
And you don't know.
so I think it's important for the committee and so we have responded, we have applied We've put in our application for our request for FEMA. We've done all of the evaluation of the buildings. I think all of you know the amount of paperwork. We've responded, they've reached back to us and have responded and asked us to respond to additional questions, which is a normal process. And so we are waiting for an offer from them for us to evaluate. I will tell you on behalf of the state, they have been going through our numbers, our details, the evaluations of what our loss were and all of that. We are waiting for that. There's a periods of times where they have to respond. There was an extension. There's potentially another extension. I do believe in, Doug Farnham did mention, and I can confirm with him, but I'm gonna put it out here on the record that, it's his understanding that FEMA has identified that while they have a slowdown, they are working with Vermont. They're putting effort and time into looking at our plan.
When did you last send them your most recent update?
We are in communication with them. Our team and Guidehouse are constantly going back on a weekly. So we're it is a back and forth.
We have weekly check-ins with them and we send them information all the time. The most recent extension for the offer, I want to say, is through mid-April. And like the commissioner said, there could be an additional one. So our expectation and hope is that we will have that clarity very soon within the next few weeks, but we do not control the process.
Right, so FEMA has asked to extend to perhaps mid-April.
But it's like a 30-day, they're small windows. They're not large windows.
Correct. They're shorter extensions more recently. Yeah.
Have you noticed a difference in FEMA organization, administration, responsiveness over the past 6 months?
There have been some changes in their ability to travel, certainly. So
But that's it. Really.
Yeah, so we've continued to work closely, at least with the Region 1 team.
Okay.
So they've been consistent. There've been some change. There has been turnover in the point people that we've been working with. And so at times that has impacted the process. And those are the folks we work most closely with. And we do know that there were some, again, limits on their ability to travel, but they've still been willing to meet with us virtually and communicate.
I think it's really important for the committee to know, we have a very clear strategy as in Vermont. We have a really strong team working with FEMA. You know, we've had success with the beach project and we will continue to have this. And I think if you really, BGS is going to oversee all of this construction and this work and we're part of the team. But if we really want to get into the strategies, I think Doug would be, Doug has been in here before. And I think if you want to have some time with him, he can talk about it. The efforts and the amount of work that we put into meeting the needs and evaluating is very, very good. We know that we had to provide information on replace and repair of each individual building, but we've also put in an application for a 428. And I'll simplify, the 428 is the methodology that we went into Waterbury, where we will end up agreeing to a lump sum of money, but we'll have some flexibility on how we utilize it within the Capitol complex instead of doing each building by building.
Yeah.
And I'd like to, well, go ahead.
I just want to state, I have zero doubt or concerns with BGS organization and capacity to be on top of this. I have significant concerns about federal responsiveness.
Yeah, and so I want to bring this back to 120 State Street if I can, and what Emily just said. So with the money, the 2 million that's in the FY27 and previous as appropriations, you've identified 5.3 million in total for the 120 State Street project. 120 State Street is a replacement of the heating and cooling. We have a radiator system there. We have walls that are deteriorating. We talked about this. You funded it once and it got delayed, I think, because of the flood, and we reallocated the money. So you've been back on a curve of getting us the money to do this building. This is a critical structure in your Capitol complex. So there's a little bit of passion. One of the options we have explored is to create a central MEP building. In part of this
Central
FEMA,
what?
central, one building to house all of the mechanical for Montpelier, because as you've toured, everything that we've lost in this building is the MEP.
Right.
So if we go building by building, we're gonna have to do building by building system.
Right.
But if we can be thoughtful and creative and come up with this solution, instead of spending money separately on DMV, we would wind that project into this alternative use. But that means we're still gonna need the money for DMV. We can't take it out of FEMA. You're still gonna have to fund it, but we're trying to refresh it, trying to reset it, look at if it's incorporated, what would the cost be?
So from our perspective, this work needs to be done regardless. The time, it's really, the FEMA overlay is really the timing and what it looks like consideration. But either way, we know that this work needs to be done for the building.
So when we looked at the reallocations and knew there was 5 million, BGS requested from the administration to hold on to the 2 million, the newest money. So we could make that a part of this overall plan.
So that 2 million, what you're thinking would go towards the overall planning of one facility for the mechanical?
No, it would stay dedicated to DMV and to DMV's system. It would be taking, how do we take what we were designing and make a connectivity to this potential one building to support the complex? But we also have to have over here, if that doesn't work, we've got to go back to 120 as planned. So we're in that
You
really.
need flexibility if the money's put here in terms of how it's used. I know you want to target it just to 120 State Street, but you need the flexibility in language as to how that 2 million can be used.
I don't know. I think that's a great question. I actually, today, I mean, I think that is, having the flexibility to align with whatever that is, that's a great question. I don't have a solution to that.
Because the way, I mean,
But because it's, so Madam Chair, I know we're not gonna probably spend the whole 2 million, I'm gonna be honest with you, in the next year.
right,
But to have to go back from where we've come from once already is gonna be really difficult. And if we get to a place really quickly with this design and we negotiate, we get an offer that's acceptable, we need to be ready to move forward. So because it's the newest money, we did not suggest reallocating it and to give us I would like to have the money there to be able to go whichever way.
so we're very specific that the money goes to seam line interior renovation.
Oh, so you're talking, okay.
So if we're gonna put money here, we really need different language to be really clear what it can be used for.
We could noodle something for you.
I work
That
with John, I work with John on that.
Noodles.
If we do this,
If you do it.
if we do it, what would 1 million get you? Instead of 2?
What 1 million gets us is, a million will, I'm gonna say 1 million will keep the project moving forward, 1 million builds a bigger gap in finding what the real costs are. And this is one of your critical buildings. This is something in our inventory that you have oversight that we need to address.
But I also want to put out to the committee that BGS has the ability to move money around between projects and
Not
sections.
millions.
I know,
But within the section, right? So
within the section, and also this is contingent, sort of really knowing how you're gonna move forward with FEMA. And FEMA could know something by this summer, so you want to be ready to be able to do
We
something.
won't have to report this to FEMA. I want to be FEMA, we're gonna accept an offer of A or B. In offer B of a 428, we are looking at creating a 1 building, so we would realign that. If we do not accept that offer as a state and we accept the standard, we will be back to this building doing the improvements that were originally designed.
Your design is gonna be different if you're doing it just for 120 State Street,
Mhm.
or if you're doing it For 120 plus all the other buildings in the complex.
I mean, 120 will have its own individual work that's kind of outside the scope of the potential central.
But you gotta still, that work within 120 with the scope of the potential major building for a mechanical, you're gonna have to design what's in 120 a little differently.
Well, exactly,
We're gonna have to adjust our design.
Yeah, right.
Right, so you're really not, you can do some preliminary design, but it's not gonna get you to the end part until you really know what option FEMA's putting out there.
Exactly.
And we may not know that. We're anticipating this summer. It might not be until the fall, knowing what's going on the federal law. We just don't know. This is,
First or second extension from. Oh. Or more than.
We asked for an extension because of the request for additional information, of the first. And so,
Misunderstood that. They asked for the extension.
This most recent one, they did.
so the flooding occurred in 23 or 24, 23, right?
24?
24? Oh, no, the big one,
Montpelier 23.
23. So it's 3 years old.
Yes,
So we've been working with FEMA since then.
yes.
well, and FEMA's been working with the state, with all of the communities, other agencies. It's not just this project. We have to,
And we've seen where some of those decisions have fallen. Connor?
Yeah, I might be getting a bit ahead, but like, is there a plan for relocating the tenants in that building and how much would that cost, do you think?
Very-
So we studied that a couple of years
Yeah.
ago, just so you know, and so there is an option that we can move people, if we were to go with the standard design right now.
Mhm.
There's an option of moving people between floors, which is not always the best. Because it is gonna be 4 by 4.
Right, right.
And then there has been the recommendation by our team, could we find an alternative location temporarily for all or for half of it? That would be in the building cost, the final numbers I would bring to you. We had not made that
Okay.
decision. But you will not be able to do the work where the employees are occupied. And the most difficult program is DMV, so we've looked at how could you move those customer services to the second floor while you do the first floor? So it's still a dartboard, but it is on our agenda and we are aware of it.
So how much money do you have in hand right now for 120? Yes.
So you have you have,
$5 million.
go to your spreadsheet, would that help? It's 5.325, 5,325,000. So you have in section 2, just give me a second. In section 2, line 11, you have the 2 million of the FY 27.
Yeah.
Okay. And then if you go to,
186,
or 26.
186, 186. Just half.
Are you saying the line 186?
Yeah.
Right, so then if you go to, well, the first line actually is in, give me 1 second, I think it's line 164, but I just want to.
But you're talking repo. I'm talking, how much do you have in hand right now for 120?
Well, because you haven't repoed it, we have 5.3 million. We haven't officially taken it yet.
And the recommendation,
You got 2 million and then you're reallocating $1 million.
We're reallocating
3.25.
3.25.
Yeah, but I don't.
Can I share? I'm trying to take you to where that is.
Sure.
Okay. So if you go to acts of 22, so that is going to be, I'm getting to the number, line 166. So if you go to line 166 on your spreadsheet, on line 166, I gotta just put my paper this way, everyone, I apologize. There's $618,000 that's being proposed to be reallocated. In that 618,000, there is 525,000 specific to DMV. Then the next line item you go to is acts of 23, which is line 167. No, I'm sorry.
68, isn't it?
186.
sorry, 186, thank you.
Yeah.
There's a million, and then you go to line 192, and there's 1.5 million. So we proposed of the,
3 million.
right, we proposed of the 5 million that you allocated towards this project. The three.
So that 5.3 million, you're incorporating the 2 million in FY 27?
Yeah, because it was last year's, yes, that's how we were looking at the total, because I know it's an adjustment this year, but you did agree to it last year.
So that was, again, the proposal, reallocate the older money, knowing that we couldn't spend it all now, but hold on to the most recent appropriation from FY 27, so we can move forward the work.
The questions on this one, committee? We're bumping up against 12 o'clock here with last members. We'll disappear here at 4.
Do you like us to?
Okay. So there was some discussion around the planning and contingency funds. Currently, we have $940,000 available, but of that, $420,000 is committed to various projects. The balance of that funding is needed for contingencies. Regarding 3-acre stormwater, there was some discussion around that. We just wanted to note that penalties for non-compliance would come out of our budget. So if there was a reduction in the appropriation, we would appreciate language excusing us from compliance from that, because we believe that the work is mandated and we're required to do it. And the funding is necessary to carry
Madam
it
Chair,
out.
we just understand from our team, the notes, there was a conversation that we would get charged with a penalty, and I will tell you, we get charged with penalties all the time.
Right, but it was when the clock starts ticking for when you had the permit to when you actually have to get that project done. And that's what we were looking at. And we wanted to make sure that we help those projects that were ready to go, that you have the permit. And then there was some that don't have the permit yet. So that clock hasn't started ticking yet. That's what we were looking at.
And can we just follow up on that clarity, and we'll let you know if
Yeah.
we've
When you get
misunderstood
the
what we
permit.
said.
When you receive the permit, that's when the 5-year clock starts.
The thinking was we had more time for some of them.
But you haven't got the permits yet.
Okay, so
Okay,
let
we
us,
missed
let
that.
us
You've gotten the
let's
permits,
verify
and
that.
that's when the 5 years starts calculating.
That helps, thank you.
Asa Bloomer.
Oh, we have a question.
Yeah, sorry, do you mind if I go back to contingency? Yeah, sure. So you probably heard I was the one. The good news is I'm outvoted on this, I think.
We didn't hear who it was.
Oh, no.
Just so
The
you
good
know.
news is I think I'm outvoted, but if you could just help me, so even if you take the 420 off the bottom line of what you have in the bank right now,
Yeah.
we were looking at 520,000 overall. And I'm just comparing that with the total ask for the 2 years was 500,000, so it feels like we're well ahead of the game on this, right?
So, I guess I'm not, we actually asked for this to be aligned and focus on what's really occurring. So as the chair mentioned earlier, we have some ability to move money around. When we're moving money from other projects to cover contingencies, we're not planning well.
Mhm.
And so that is part of the increase. We've also been advancing, and I will say to this committee, it was clear this money was not being used. We've really focused again and realigned. We're using some of the money to look at some of those buildings and how can we reuse them and what can we do in contingencies? Because, what is our existing
Mhm.
inventory? And I think, we've talked about this, we've been reevaluating the Williston State Police Barracks. How can you reuse it? What's the reuse? Could we use that to fill another need instead of building another project?
Yeah.
So I don't know if I answered your question. So we've seen an increase, and to sit down and have to take 50,000 or 100,000 from a project to
Mhm.
improve to cover another cost. This is the money that allows us to do that.
So is it fair to say you have some increased demands from when this was initially pitched a couple of years ago, right?
I think it's
Return to
increased
work,
demand.
that type of
I
stuff.
don't know if it's the return to office because, I always get yelled at, Steve. Like, Steve, what was your
Oh, what did I
return to
say?
work?
I probably
You
said
said
work.
return to work.
Yeah.
It's not that, like,
No, it's not that. It's really having a strategy on our buildings.
Mhm.
And I think there's been a little bit of lull at VGS, because of the floods and because of COVID and paying attention to our infrastructure and doing strong planning up front. And that's one of the things that we are working together really hard on in our leadership. And that does take money. Don't just say, well, we're not gonna use a building or sell it. Let's evaluate, how can we use it? Is there a better use? You know, when our customers come to us and they ask for, you know, this, we work to really push it back to what's reasonable. And so I think some of the cost estimates, because they were done a while ago, where you guys were in full, we're seeing increase in that. So that's where the contingency is really the safety belt to keep something.
I feel reassured.
Thank you. I feel passionate.
So let's move on because we have lunch and we have to be on the floor at 1.
Asa Bloomer, we have a contract to move forward with the roof. Any reallocation of funds would likely require us to break a contract, and we believe in the end cost the state more money because we're having to do frequent patch repairs due to the failing membrane, and leaks from the roof there go directly into DOL AHS workspace. That has happened this year. It is not a good situation for anyone involved.
We weren't going in phase of booming.
Okay.
Well, we were talking, they put on a temporary roof.
Right.
We saw some notes that there was
It's not a temporary
conversation.
roof. We had a major patch, a $200,000
So
repair.
contract that you're under, is that for a brand new roof to take care of this major patch?
Yeah, we're doing the whole building. What we're doing, we are literally, we are on bucket patrol.
Yeah.
With the roof there,
Um,
big buckets.
Youth stabilization facility, we noticed that there were some conversation and questions around the request there. Just wanted to note questions around sort of the policy, staffing costs and contracts for staffing are best directed to DCF. We did go out to bid recently, in the last few months, to move the project forward after we had to pivot from Virgins. For the build to suit lease approach that we've discussed with you before. We have a letter of intent with the developer. We're working very aggressively with them and with our partners at DCF to move the project forward. Right now, we're looking at just scope of the design, seeing if we can find some efficiencies. And the funding request is to cover a portion of design costs that will not be rolled into the lease rate.
And we have not signed a contract. You all know the rules around contracting. But we have as Emily said, a letter of intent. We meet every Friday. We are working closely with DCF. We are we've done a cost analysis. We've talked about affordability. We are looking at how can we make this more efficient and meet the needs. And once we get to that place, we're gonna go into a design contract.
Yep, and we have, again, a great partners, both on the developer side and in DCF, and we have renewed energy around this and a viable path forward. So we feel optimistic that we
When do you think we'll
have
hear?
a path
When do you think we'll hear?
about,
Like a signed contract?
it's in,
Well, we are, we need to come to agreement on the size and scope.
Yeah.
And the cost of the annual lease.
Yeah.
So that's where we are right now. We have a pretty aggressive schedule so what I'm gonna tell you is that we do need to do some a little bit more of a permitting updating. I wanna say by the end of summer, we'll have, I'm gonna say, I'm guessing right now, maybe June.
Yeah.
I think June would probably be the fairest. And here's the thing, Representative, it's either going to work out, we're gonna have a contract, or we're done.
yeah.
And so we are working, we are working
All hands on deck.
all hands on deck on this.
So you have money already. You have
Yeah.
about 300,000?
Yeah.
And that's all expended?
No, so we need,
So you
it's
would match, it, you would put it on top of the.
on top of this and
You
it's.
got 1 million?
Right, and what Emily said is really important. When these costs are not blended into the lease, nor do you want them
We
to
need
be.
1 million to finish up some
Yeah.
of these designs.
It's for the
It's a
time-
design build.
it's
that
a
the
design-
Developer is
It's not a
gonna,
design build, it's a design with a developer. We're designing the space and the programming and what it looks like.
and the developer's gonna build it to our
And
design.
lease it back to us.
So are you getting information from DCF in terms of what you really need?
Yes, and that's what we're doing
Okay.
right now. So we're having these very focused sessions to review the design because again, they had a design that from previous attempts that we're now working to refine, find efficiencies, make sure that we're going to be moving forward with a build for the right space. And so again, we're working very heavily with DCF, looking at the programming needs. And again, before we move forward with that design process, make sure that we're all on the same page with the right programming. So again, that's those very focused meetings in person weekly at this point that we're all around the table, making sure pencils are to paper and we're taking the right approach. But again, that funding is for like the time period between now and when we're signing a lease for the design work, some of the permitting process, et cetera, that we'll be going through. And again, not wrapping into the lease.
And I think it's really important for this, you to know, there was always a design, right? It was one design, they expanded it, but it was a visual design.
Mhm.
It wasn't the functional design.
Yeah.
And the schematic.
Yeah.
And so this money takes us to, because we have to pay for that design work, it takes us to through the construction design. If everything is successful with this, and everything lines up, this is the most aggressive.
Yeah.
Positive.
Yeah.
Project with a schedule that you're not looking at 5 years out. If everything lines up, you.
or there's other things that need to line up that's out of your
They don't have a
wheelhouse.
They don't have a staff, as I recall that discussion.
So our role is to get that design to them.
I
to do
know.
that, And this is what in order to meet we did an RFP with this, in order to advance to the contractual obligation of doing further, this is the funds that are needed.
But there's other things at play here. So that's my train of thought. So how many beds? 14?
13.
And the developer owns the land. Has it been permitted?
It not permitted yet.
For the building.
For the building, zoning, they believe it's appropriately zoned.
So they have water and sewer?
Yeah.
Site,
Yep.
electrical,
Yep.
phase 3, whatever, phase 3.
There may have to be some realignment delineations with the Act 250 permit, because there are some wetlands, but there's enough land that we'll be able to, that's.
So the lease and then the developer would build the building.
Correct.
Yep.
We design it.
Yep.
The developer will build to our specs, what we need. Then we lease it back for the land and the building, or just the building?
And our RFP that went out, the response is the state reserves the right to purchase.
Right? But so
And-
we're paying a lease, we don't know, might be just on the building or it's on the
No, it's
land.
it's on
land
the
and
whole
building?
property. Yeah, and it's also a triple net proposal where they're doing maintenance.
They're taking care of everything.
Yes. What's important is that we've been doing financial analysis on affordability, what did we anticipate it's gonna cost? And that's part of the discussion, because you have to look at that to say, are there savings?
Yep.
So, I mean, they're doing plowing, it's.
Yep.
And it's a proposal, we have not negotiated the details of what that lease would look like.
So that's not all gonna get resolved. You'll know by the end, you'll know in a month if we're still gonna go forward with this developer. Right?
We have every
Intention.
intention with this and developer. I think it's some of the broader policy questions that you had
Yeah.
talked about. But from the BGS perspective, we're moving forward.
So you hope to have all the lease agreement, everything in place by June, end of June?
No,
Sometime during
so
the
we'll
summer?
have the outline of the lease, it's important, so how these projects work and how they should work we will end up doing a development contract for the design. And we will continue to negotiate, talk about content of lease and work on that. We don't sign the lease document until the building is built.
Correct.
And so we don't want to get into all of those layers, but, and so again, this is what the money is for, is to carry forward that design piece. Our intent is to enter into this agreement with them, that's the letter, but there's some very clear phases.
Yeah, it's to fund essentially a services contract, like A&E, to do that design work before you get to the lease signing.
And Madam Chair, I don't want to go into the past, but I know you had similar project, we were approaching this project in other ways. We did not do it in this contractual manner, and this is one of the resets, this is the appropriate way to do the development, the design agreement, and then move it to the lease when it's done.
I'm not questioning EPS. I think you do it great. I think the other question is where DCF is and trying to figure out their operating costs. And that's a discussion with some of our colleagues in other committees that they're having some trouble. So we don't want to get too far in advance ahead of all of that conversation. So that's sort of what, it's a chicken and egg situation in a way. We do want to continue with the building, but on the other hand, if it's going to be such a high operating cost for staffing, there may be some different decisions made out there in the building.
So I just want to say to the committee that, part of our job is, doing, looking at costs, looking at operating, looking at all of this and what's affordable. Desire programming pushes construction design, which changes what the cost goes, right? You can either expand or you can, what is that word? Contract, thank you. We have been working very closely with the deputy secretary. When I say we, I talk about Emily and I and with the secretary of administration. And I would just encourage, if you want to have a conversation with the deputy secretary on the operating costs, she's aware of how that can impact the overall long-term cost of operating this building.
Deputy Secretary of the Agency of Administration.
Human Services.
Well, I think upstairs are trying to get through to that. So anyway, we've
So just so you
got to
know.
get to lunch and we're losing members.
Yes.
So
Last two things we had on our list were, there was some discussion on 108 Cherry. Wanted to just reflect, there may have been just a misstatement, miscommunication. Just wanted to know, we have extended the existing purchase and sale with the buyer on the property. We are planning to move forward with the sale. It is taking longer than expected due to some site analysis work and contract discussions, but that is still moving forward. And then regarding door controls, we are working to cut scope for cost reductions in St. Johnsbury, but we do recommend that the funding remain as is, so that the funding is available if we need it to complete the project in St. Johnsbury, and then the 500,000 for Marble Valley will be used for design and pre-construction services. So again, requesting that we keep the funding as is for the door controls.
Do you have a copy of what?
I can share a copy. I do, just based on our conversation, I do want to make some updates again, knowing if you want copies, I'm happy to share. But again, we learned some things today. I can leave them.
Yeah, just leave us. We'll go.
And Madam Chair, please let us know if you need Emily or I when you do BGS policy or BGS money in the room, and Cole knows that.
Yeah.
And we tried to be here yesterday and our apologies.
that's fine. So our schedule, we're trying to get the bill out. It's the first time we've taken a look at it since middle of February. So we have some time. We need to get up to speed. We're on the floor for a long afternoon, but I've said to the committee, if there's some real boring times, which there could be, I'm going to ask the speaker to see if we can come back into committee for some of that. I just don't know how the rest of today is going to play out. Tomorrow, we're definitely here at 8:30, which is
So you'll get a note to us in case we come back to the committee, correct?
we will text.
I think we need to let our staff have some lunch before
We all
the.
need lunch. So be on the lookout for BGS, just connect with Tate, because Tate will let you know, maybe.
Maybe Cole's here.
Thanks for buzzing through that.
Thank you.